Hey friends, welcome to the Empowered Homes Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to grow strong families by giving you resources to win at home. Hey, today's episode is a recording with my friend Deborah Decker. She has an incredible story. If you have heard that name, you probably heard it on our Grace in the Chaos podcast, our podcast for families with special needs. Just an incredible story of how God used this tragedy in her professional life. She was in law enforcement. I don't want to give too many things away because I really want you to watch the rest of the episode. But there was a murder that happened, and through her investigation of this murder, man, she came to know the Lord. An incredible testimony. If you're interested in murder mystery or Dateline type stuff, you're going to be interested in this interview with her. And she has an incredible podcast where she goes through and details the timeline of how all these events happened that radically changed her life and her family's life. So you'll be blessed by Deborah. So if you want more resources when it comes to special needs parenting, we'll talk about that in the interview. We have a bunch of great new resources on Empowered Homes. Not only if you have special needs kids in your home, but also to help your kids be the kids that are full of empathy and full of grace towards their classmates that may have special needs. So incredible episode with Deborah. You don't want to miss it. So incredible episode with Deborah Decker. Check it out here. Hey friends, welcome to the Empowered Homes Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to grow strong families by connecting church and home. And today I'm in studio with Deborah. Deborah, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
You're no stranger to this room.
Right.
You are actually on the last episode we dropped on Grace in the Chaos.
Yes.
Sharing your story with your family. We'll put that in the description of this episode too, so folks can access that. But today, we're here for something completely different.
Yes.
We want to talk about your podcast today.
My podcast, yes.
Which is awesome. We'll get into the details about all of that. But before, just share who you are and kind of how we got to today.
So my name's Deborah Decker, and my husband Steve and I joined Kingsland back in 2022 when we moved to out near Sealy, Texas. And our neighbors told us about this wonderful church that has this amazing special needs ministry because we have 2 adult sons with autism and epilepsy. And we came and checked it out and never left.
Yeah.
So we've been here a little over 2 years now.
Yeah. In your podcast, you share a lot about your background. Share a little bit about your law enforcement experience and becoming a special agent for the FBI and all that.
Okay. When I was 21 years old, I became a police officer first in Bethany, Oklahoma. I did about 2 years as a police officer because I just always had this desire or fascination with law enforcement. Don't know why. Nobody in my family's in law enforcement, but that's kind of where I was led. And so I was a police officer for 2 years, and then my ultimate goal was to become an FBI agent, which I did when I was 23. I applied. That's the minimum age for the FBI. So I applied when I was 23 and was selected and went to the academy. I actually turned 24 at the FBI Academy.
Yeah. Incredible. In your podcast, you kind of explain that journey and give some great stories. But the reason I wanted to interview you today for our listeners, most of our listeners are parents and grandparents. And one of the fascinating parts of your story is your story.
Yes.
And just kind of focusing on the power of story and that every one of us, if you're listening, every parent, your story matters, and being able to share that is important. It's vital. It's a key part of discipleship in the home and going through that. And so if you're interested in kind of the crime podcast or any of
Yes.
that. I know a lot of our listeners listen to those things as well. This is not just about crime. This is about God using a case
Right.
to change your life. So what's the
Right.
name of your podcast?
It's called Murder and Mercy: The Killing of an Oklahoma Highway Patrol Trooper
Yeah.
is the full title. If you just search Murder and Mercy, it comes up.
Yeah.
So this was I worked many murder investigations while I was an agent, but this one particularly just changed my life. I'd kind of wandered away from God and was questioning and not really, I was looking for answers and not really finding any. And then when I worked this investigation about a Oklahoma Highway Patrol trooper who was killed on duty on Christmas Day of 2003. And just working that investigation, I heard about Nick Green, who's the trooper, and what a good Christian man he was, and how he devoted his life to God. And just hearing all these different stories from different people just touched my heart and really brought me back to where I belonged, which was to God and Jesus and the church, and just changed my life.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you about what happened in your bedroom after the funeral later.
Yes.
So we'll save
Okay.
that for the end. But
Okay.
you talk a lot in the podcast on, not wanting kids.
Yes.
And share with us kind of where you were at with God and where you were at personally with you made that decision not wanting kids.
Yeah. I had never really had the desire for kids. I'm not sure why. I was the youngest of three and the only girl in my family, and it just wasn't. I think my career was a priority, and back when I first got into law enforcement, I was in my early 20s, so it just wasn't on my radar at the time, and I just really didn't feel that desire. But then I met my husband, Steve,
Yeah.
and saw what a wonderful father he would be. And we ended up getting married, and he was, amazing as it seems, he was willing to stay home and be a stay-home dad with our kids, which for me, that was important because in my career, I worked a lot of crimes against children cases.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
You
and
share
that-
a bunch of that in the
Yes.
podcast.
And
Yeah.
that made me very reluctant to bring children into this world, and even more reluctant to, have my children around anybody. So, they talk about helicopter moms. I was like, a jet fighter mom. I mean, I couldn't leave my kids with anybody.
Yeah.
So he was willing to stay home and be a stay-home dad, and he still is to this day. And it's, our boys are adults now. Matthew just turned 23, and Nathan will be 22 in June, and they're still living at home with us, due to their disabilities. But he was a stay-home dad through my whole career, which allowed me to, do the things that I wanted to do and wanted to accomplish. I spent 25 years with the FBI. And then decided to retire at 25 years and went on to work for some other private companies after that. But I actually retired earlier this year, so I'm hoping it sticks this time.
Well, I mean, your tenacity and just getting stuff done, I think you'll find something to do.
Oh yeah.
But going from not wanting kids and working all those cases, and you do share some of those cases that you investigated.
Yes.
And then when you found out your oldest son, what's his name?
Matthew.
When y'all were going through, I forget what it's called, the early...
the early evaluations
Yes.
and diagnoses,
Yeah, share it just kind of as a mom, your heart in the middle of that process. You talk about it in the podcast, but just
Yes.
a little bit.
Well, it was really kind of strange to me looking back on it because, we saw things with Matthew in his development that we kind of knew. I mean, we did our own research and everything. And then when the experts came out, we were living in Oklahoma at that time, and, a team came out and they were doing evaluations with him and everything, and we had already done research on the internet and we kind of knew what was going on, but we didn't want to say anything. So after they had come out a few times and they were like, I don't know, they're kind of him-hawing around about, and we were like, he's autistic, right?
Yeah.
And they were just kind of like, oh, yes, we don't like to say that. We don't like to tell people that. But I don't know. You would think, I know people there are people who are devastated with that diagnosis, but for some reason I just felt like God gave him to us, I just felt like, okay, we'll take care of him, whatever he needs, we'll take care of it. Now when Nathan came along, Nathan is 16 months younger. And we thought, oh, good, Nathan's going to have somebody to take care of him when we're gone. Matthew's going to have Nathan to take care of him when we're gone. And then we found out Nathan's also autistic. And in fact, Nathan's more severely autistic than Matthew. So that was quite a shock.
Yeah, and you talk about in the podcast, there was a moment where you are at the doctor, and share what the doctor told you.
We had Matthew at the specialist in Oklahoma. Now this was probably 20 years ago, and she was evaluating him just to get his official diagnosis. We already knew, but they have to get an official diagnosis. And so she had been evaluating him all day, and we had Nathan there. Nathan was just a little kid. He's crawling around the room, while we're doing our thing. And we asked the doctor at that time, we said, well, what are the chances that Nathan will also be autistic? And she kind of looked at him for a while and, watched him a little bit. And she was like, oh, I just don't really see anything with him. It would be like lightning striking twice. Well, that was 20 years ago. Yeah. They know more now.
Yeah.
And lightning struck twice. Yeah.
So you, young mother with two little boys, let's fast forward to what happened on the side of the road with this case.
Yeah. So when we got called on Christmas morning, or actually the day after, we got called and went out that there had been a trooper killed. Now, when that happens in a state, every law enforcement agency in the state sends people to help. And so this was I was stationed in Lawton, Oklahoma at this time. This happened in a little town near there named Devol, Oklahoma. And so I was one of several of the FBI agents in Lawton that went out, and we just start, running down leads. Well, the first thing we did was we went to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol headquarters, and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation was already there. They had pulled the dash cam from Trooper Green's cruiser, and we were watching that. And we couldn't really see anything because he didn't have his camera on for whatever reason at the beginning. So what happened was all we could see was a white car in front of his cruiser. And back then, cameras weren't like they are now. It was dark outside. Everything was very grainy. You couldn't even read the license plate. Or actually, you couldn't see the license plate because the trunk was up and his license plate was on the back of the trunk. So all we saw was a white car. Well, then when the sound came on, you could hear that there's a big fight going on off camera to the side of the cruiser. And we could just hear fighting, and these, you could tell people were fighting for their lives. And we heard Trooper Green, basically saying, "Please don't kill me, don't kill me." And the person he was talking to said, "I'm not going to kill you." And we kept hearing, "Where is it? Where is it?" At the time, we didn't know what that was. So there's fighting going on. We hear Trooper Green say, "Oh, Lord Jesus Christ." And then we hear a shot. And then there's silence. And then we hear another shot. And a spray of blood came across the windshield of the trooper's car. And then the wipers, it was kind of drizzly, just came and wiped it away. It was just eerie.
Yeah.
Then we see the person run back over to his car, and he's gathering up stuff beside the car. He gets in and drives off. That's all we had to go on. So, we listened to that over and over and over. We didn't know if Trooper Green knew this person. Did they call each other by name? We just had to watch the video over and over and over, trying to get any clues we could out of it. So that's how my morning started that day.
Yeah, and so you're in the middle of the investigation. You're trying to figure out who this person is. You guys ultimately nailed him down.
Yes.
and got him, and then save some of that for you. Got to go listen to the podcast
Yes.
to hear those details. But then fast forward to his funeral,
Yes.
and kind of share with us, like, what was God doing in your heart and in your life to pursue you and to draw you closer to Him in the middle of all of that?
At that time, I was really not involved with God. I had just, I won't say strayed away. I mean, obviously, I was in law enforcement, so I wasn't doing anything bad, but I just didn't have an interest, didn't have a connection, I guess, is what. Now, at a short time before that, I was like reading all kinds of books on different religions, and I was just interested on what do other people in the world believe, and so I was reading about Buddhism and Hinduism and all the other religions, but just not finding anything that resonated with me. Now, I had grown up in the Baptist church, but had strayed from that. We stopped. I think I mentioned in the podcast when my parents got divorced when I was young. My dad kind of got the church friends, and my mom just stopped taking us there. So I just didn't have a real strong background at church. Well, so at this time when this happened, I felt a mixture of anger. Like, you hear about this great guy, this trooper who's a youth minister at his church. And, people would describe him as the type of man that would pull you over, give you a ticket, but invite you to come to church. I mean, that's what everybody had to say about Nick. And so at the time, I'm like, why didn't you help him win that fight? Why did the bad guy win? Nick he was married, had 4 daughters. And I just couldn't understand it. Why did you let this happen, God? So that's kind of where I was at that point.
Yeah, and you talk about in great detail of not just with the case and the frustration with all of that, but also some frustration at home and some different things with God of how you had been working all these children's cases for so many years and being kind of frustrated with God because your boys have autism and
I felt very much like I had spent so many years working crimes against children and just seeing and hearing awful things, and then my thought was I finally decided to have kids, and I have 2 perfect victims because they can't talk, they can't tell us if anything happened to them. So I was very, confused about that and frustrated and, why weren't my kids okay when I'm trying to help all these other kids?
Yeah,
so.
Which is rightly so, to have those feelings and those thoughts. And after investigating this man's life and just seeing the realness of his relationship with God, share with us just a little bit of what happened right after the funeral in your room.
So I came home. When these things happen, we almost always go to the funeral if we're working a case like that. I don't know if you've ever been to a law enforcement funeral, but it's the saddest thing. I mean, they have the bagpipes playing, and just every agency sends their honor guard there to pay respects to the fallen officer, and it's just a really sad, somber thing. But so I went home. I went home from the funeral and got home, and I went into our bedroom. I was just getting, changing clothes, and I had laid the funeral announcement down on the bed. And for whatever reason, I looked down at it, and it was like my eyes were just locked on the picture of him on the front. It was, him in his uniform, his official, OHP photograph. And it was like my eyes just like locked onto his eyes. And I heard, "Thank you." And like before I could even think, did I just hear that?
Yeah.
Every hair on my body stood up. Like, it was just the strangest response. And when that happened, I was like, yeah, I did just hear that because, your body, I wasn't something I could control. And I just immediately went and found my husband and, told him what happened.
Yeah.
And after that, my life was just different. It was kind of like, okay, I know where I'm supposed to be now. I know, the true God, the religion I should be involved in is, the one surrounding Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So.
And God used this tragedy to really draw you back to Him.
Yes.
And just an amazing, powerful testimony of God's power. And in the worst situation, He used it to change your life and to change your husband's life. And I won't get into any of that, but you got to listen to talk about, what happened in the weeks and months and years afterwards. It's incredible just to see.
I mean, it's been 20-something years now, and I've never wondered again. I've never wondered, am I in the right spot? Am I, God led us here. It was just, coming. If you'd told me I was going to move from Oklahoma to near Houston, Texas, 20 years ago, I'd have told you were crazy.
Yeah.
But we moved down here. We found the Brookwood community in Brookshire, which is why we came down here, because we have to have somewhere for our boys to be when we're gone.
Yeah.
And but He led us down here. He led us, the neighborhood we ended up buying in. We live right across the road from Dennis and Nancy Wilbanks, who brought us to this church.
Yeah.
It was just all such a God thing.
Yeah. And that's the power of our story of looking, sometimes we have to look back and see, oh, there was God.
Yes.
He was there. He was there. And your podcast is a great story. It's well done. You got Pastor Ryan Rush. He's doing your openings for each episode, and it's really exciting. And main reason, I just want people to hear this story.
I do too.
And that's why I wanted to interview you today. So folks, you kind of mentioned just what platforms, what's the best way to get a hold of
it's
the
on
podcast?
it's on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, just anywhere you listen to podcasts, it's on there. So just and what's so funny is not too long after this happened, after the actual investigation was over, I tried to sit down and I wanted to write a book about it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do it. It was just it was still too fresh. It was still too painful. And I just, I just put it away and never got it back out again. But after Ryan interviewed us on this podcast, I've never done a podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, a podcast. Maybe I could do that. And I got it out, and it just flowed out.
Yeah.
The whole story just came out effortlessly.
Yeah. You can tell
and
on
I got
every episode. Yeah.
Got it recorded, put some music to it, and I'm really happy with how it came out. So
it's an easy listen.
There's 3 episodes. Each one is 30 minutes long. It's not that long. So
it's incredible. So Murder and Mercy, just search that in Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You will be blessed by this story and how it's all about God and what He's done in y'all's family and your life, and it's incredible. So if you're looking for this podcast, make sure you listen. We'll put it in the podcast description too, on YouTube and on all of our other platforms. But if you are looking for resources, if you need things for parenting, marriage, personal growth, you can always find great content at empoweredhomes.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.